If you've been keeping up with the Boruto Two Blue Vortex manga, you might be asking yourself, what is going on with Kawaki and why is he so weak right now? The manga begins with Code's attack on Konoha, with his army formed by splitting the Ten-Tails using his claw mark, and mixing his blood to create the claw grime. Early on it showed that the claw grime are pretty powerful and able to use Code's Shinjutsu casually, but are still very easily dealt with by the new Konoha 11. Chocho even proves that she's capable of handling them, claiming that they're no big deal and only tricky in large numbers. Sarada, who's even stronger than her, is easily shown taking out 3 of them in one go with her Chidori. Of course, Kawaki is in his base form and can fight them as well, proving that he is on par with the weaker ninjas. But there's one situation people love bringing up to downplay Kawaki, in which he's grabbed and slammed to the floor by a claw grime, but this in all fairness isn't a normal claw grime. Shikadai claims that this one is a level above the rest, which is proven by the fact that he has a Rinnegan. We know it's in a semi-state between a claw grime and one of the Jubi's egos, beginning to gain consciousness, hence it's even able to speak and call Kawaki an Utsutsuki. This forces Kawaki to use his karma and blast it away, which isn't a great look for him, considering that Boruto hasn't even broken a single sweat, fighting against dozens of them. However, it gets even worse for Kawaki when he's shown unconscious a few chapters later on the ground and implied to have been one-shot by Mitsuki. While it is disrespectful that Kawaki got off-screened, we can't say for sure how he was taken down. All we do know for certain is that he was poisoned and may have been caught off guard, which is slightly more respectable, but not proven. And if you are a Kawaki fan, I'm sorry. To rub more salt into the wound, Mitsuki said, based on the fact that Boruto made Code retreat in his base form, means that Kawaki would stand no chance against him. So right now, as it stands, Kawaki is purposely written to not only be weaker than Boruto, just to be weak in general, compared to the top tiers. Using Mitsuki's logic, Code might be stronger than Kawaki. However, Kawaki himself believed that he could have killed a drained Code. We know that Kawaki has definitely got stronger, as shown by his fully developed Damagon, suggesting that at full power he's likely stronger than Jigen, who was an imperfect vessel unlike himself, and Jigen was stronger than Naruto and Sasuke, pre-Timeskip. Meaning that Kawaki is anywhere between Jigen and Code's level, but is still drastically weaker than his rival Boruto. Yes, the same Code who has a losing record and lost his eye against a drained, one-eyed Sasuke. So there's no way of getting past the proposition that my boy Lawaki is a jobber, but how did he fall off so badly? Well, I'm going to explain why Kawaki's stocks are at an all-time low, and why you, as an audience, should start investing in him as soon as possible. But before you do that, please subscribe and like the video. I know that you guys actually like Boruto content. If you want to see more Boruto content, please do. I could be making content on Jujutsu Kaisen or Bleach otherwise. Getting into this video. The first reason Kawaki sucks now is to do with his over-reliance of a karma, which he takes advantage of. This is to do with his upbringing. Kawaki was mentally and physically abused by his father, who treated him as worthless. After being sold, pretty much child trafficked to Jigen, he was treated even worse and put through biological experimentation and some grueling training, which I'll go over later, even persuading him that he was empty and the karma was the only thing giving him any worth as a person, as messed up as that is. After being gaslit, Kawaki has over-relied on karma for so long it's become a part of his identity, so when he lost it in chapter 50, he felt empty. Amado even commented on how depressed Kawaki seemed without the karma, and manipulated him into accepting a new one with his daughter's data compressed within it. It's entirely possible that Kawaki has been slacking off because he believes that the karma provides him with all the power that he ever needs to achieve his goals. But we can go even further with this idea. The main reason Kawaki is so weak is because of his ideology that the only way to get stronger is through physical training. After being brought by Jigen, the training that Kawaki went through was hell and made him wish that he was dead because it was entirely physical. So he'd been conditioned to work physically over technically, and this limits his potential drastically. To prove that, in chapter 58, Team 7 begin training to take down Code, and this begins with meditation for chakra control. Konohamaru straight away notices that Kawaki has no work ethic or team spirit at all, so Kawaki comes across as annoying to Team 7, who tell him to stop yapping and remain focused, which he cannot do. Kawaki starts complaining and saying that the shinobi training is too short term and won't be effective, which tells us that he's impulsive. He views traditional training like meditation as outdated and prefers to spar constantly. But this is a wrong mentality to have, as I mentioned earlier. If you take combat sports in real life, to actually develop, you need to have a good mix between technical and sparring drills, so that you can understand the mechanics of a sport and actually win. This concept is especially important in the Narutoverse, in which characters are mainly technical, and you even have some characters who don't really have that much potential but can still reach high levels of strength by simply learning chakra control. It was through that same principle that Sakura was able to focus nearly 100% of her chakra into her fists to harm Kaguya. And this is what even inspired Gaara to become so strong later on, being able to compete with Otsutsuki. So because of his lack of understanding, Kawaki can't make use of his chakra, and now he's beginning to fall behind the other characters who don't have the same level of potential as him. Another good reason to why Kawaki has fallen off is because of what I call the money syndrome. You've probably heard this quote before: hard times create strong men and easy times create weak men. In real life, this applies to high-level elite athletes. You've probably seen this many times where elite prospects like Mike Tyson begin their careers so good because they've got nothing to lose. They're the underdog, they're the ones that need to work. But when they get money, glory, fame, and stop training, they become undisciplined. And this is when they become not as good as they were before. This especially applies to Kawaki because early on in his life, it was hard. His father abused him by treating him like garbage and child trafficked him, as I said earlier. He was then brought by Jigen, who basically treated him the same, and he only grew stronger because of his hatred for Jigen. After being biologically experimented on, isolated, starved, and forced to train for the majority of his life, he was a hardened warrior. But when the Omnipotence was activated in chapter 79 by Ada to grant Kawaki's wish, everything changed. He switched roles with Boruto, stole his status as a Hokage's spoiled son, and sealed away Naruto for safekeeping. Not only is his obsession in protecting the Hokage and becoming his son hindering his mental state, but he got what he wanted. He wasn't garbage anymore. And this was the first time in his life he was living cozy, peacefully, but this came at a hefty cost. Over 3 years, he was beginning to lose sight of his true goal of eradicating the Otsutsuki, which led him to slacking off with his training. Whereas Boruto, on the other hand, has swapped places with him. He's in constant danger from all sides, everybody hates him, and this keeps him sharp with his training, bringing me on to the current power cliff. Boruto has been training way more seriously than Kawaki, and this is self-evident after the time skip. Whereas Kawaki over the past 3 years has been self-taught, Boruto has found himself a high-level master in Sasuke. Sasuke has been around the block, he knows a thing or two, and claims that there's nothing left for him to teach Boruto, who is an unrivaled genius. Boruto is so strong right now because it's a case of when talent decides to work hard. Kawaki is actually a case of when hard work stopped working hard, so the effects are going to be extremely heavy in this case, as they're both polar opposites. Boruto has completely surpassed Kawaki's level of power, so no wonder Mitsuki thinks that he stands no chance against him. With that said, this brings me on to my conclusion, and the reason to why I think it's smart to invest in Kawaki stocks right now. Although Kawaki is very clearly depicted as Boruto's inferior right now, we know he won't stay that way for long. Let's be smart about this. Kawaki will inevitably get a power up in the near future and reach Boruto's level of power by the time we reach the first chapter's flash forward. In the future, it's implied that Kawaki has destroyed Konoha and brought about the end of the ninja world. Boruto won't be able to stop this from happening, and ultimately will face Kawaki in a 1v1 to determine who will change this ninja world. For this to even be narratively important, it has to be a competitive fight between them, in which both of their lives are on the line. Otherwise, it saps the tension and the stakes out of this fight. But not only the fight, the entire series, because we know it's been building up until this point as foreshadowed in the first chapter. So if you were a betting man, you'd know that Kawaki is either going to go through some intense training arc, or he's going to get a major power up in the near future. I can guarantee you that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe and like the video. I really appreciate it, and it really does help the channel get that little bit closer to that 15k subscriber special, if you do want to see that, which will likely be Naruto vs Ichigo, something like that. Obviously, the closer we get, the more I'll discuss on what that video could be. Remember, voice your opinion on what you think about Kawaki's current power level, why you think he's so weak right now, whether you think he'll reach Boruto's level of power, and also check out these other videos, which are Boruto related. I'm guessing that you do like this kind of content, that's why you've reached to the end of the video. Regardless, thanks for watching, peace.